Hello everyone, it's Omae and welcome back to the brand new video. Today I'll be discussing in depth both the PvE and PvP abilities of the new Pirate Rumble legend Bartolomeo, discussing whether this character will ever be used in PvE and if the new mechanic damage reflection that he introduces is broken. We also talk about if he will be the perfect counter for 12th anniversary Shanks, and also what characters will work best with him and if he's going to go perfectly on the 12th anniversary Luffy Dex fighter team. In this video, I won't be discussing whether or not you should be pulling and how good each of the characters on the banner and that are rate boosted are available. When the banner goes live tomorrow and I do my discount multi, I will discuss that with you guys. But first off, let's take a look at his PvE abilities. Now, off the bat, he's a very niche character in PvE. I don't think he'll be used very often, but I do think there are situations where he's going to be the only character to do the job. Now, looking at his captain ability, spitting in an Emperor's face. And of course, he is a Dex fighter powerhouse unit. He doesn't have any support ability, and his potential abilities are just the generic damage reduction, so that you can level them up very easily. Because remember, potential ability level ups do increase Rumble stats, and of course he can get around hunger stacks as well, which is pretty nice. So his captain ability reduces his own cooldown by 4 turns. That is definitely necessary because of how high his cooldown is at 17 turns before limit break expansion. But he's not giving anyone else cooldown, which is a massive issue. He's going to boost Dex and fighter characters attack by 5.5x, HP by 1.5x, and then if there are 6 enemies at the start of cruise attack or moving between battle, then reduces damage taken by 50%. Now what this just means is that whether you are getting hit by a preemptive strike by the enemy or tanking a death hit, as long as there are 6 enemies, you'll get that 50% damage reduction. That's what they mean by moving between battle. This will also reduce preemptive damage. However, there are so few scenarios where there are 6 enemies that this will never be used. 50% is also just not good enough for that being his whole utility. He's not giving anyone else cooldown. Yeah, pretty bad captain ability, I must say. His special though, burning the red hair's pirate flag at 17 turns of cooldown before expansion, 16 turns after, reduces barriers by 2 turns, gives a 85% damage reduction as well as a 1-for-1 ratio damage reduction based on the allies attack boost. No wait, a damage reduction based attack boost based on the allies damage reduction. Now it is for X amount of turns based on how many enemies are present when you use the special. So I do think this is way more a valuable effect compared to the captain ability, where it just states straight up you need 6 enemies. I do think this will actually see a bit of play, because if you use his special on stage 2 of a Pirate King adventure where there are 5 enemies, you'll get a 5-turn damage reduction and a 5-turn damage reduction based attack boost. That will give you consistent damage for both stage 3 and stage 4, and also allow you to survive damage taken throughout those stages. If there are 5 enemies present and you get these buffs on stage 2, they will leave by the time you reach the final stage though, which is a bit of an issue. If there are 6 enemies present though, then the damage reduction will last for the final stage's preemptive strike, and if there's a death hit on the preemptive or reduce 100,000 HP, then this will be active for the preemptive. So I mean, it's very niche because you're dedicating a whole slot just to giving you a damage reduction for the quest and a damage reduction based attack boost. Now if you do meet the requirement of having 2 or more Land of Wonder Arc characters and 2 or more supernovas, so 1 of each excluding himself, then that will be a much stronger buff. It'll be a 95% damage reduction and one of the strongest damage reduction based attack boosts we have seen in the entire game. If you meet the requirements, the damage reduction attack boost will essentially give you a 2.45x increase in damage. It's essentially a 1.5x your damage reduction into attack boost. But he's just not doing enough. This base attack boost he provides is horrible because it's only applying to Paramythia types, and it's only a 1500 increase, which is not good enough for nowadays. But the good thing is that that base attack boost will also be up to 5-6 turns if there are a lot of enemies present. So I do think this unit is interesting, but pretty bad overall, because the base attack boost is only applying to Parameteor type. You need a lot of enemies to be present, and the only time there's more than one enemy present in 99% of content is on the earlier stages of a battle when you're fighting fodder mobs. If you're fighting shorter form content like Kizuna or Treasure Map, stage 1 has 2 enemies, the 2 high defense turtles, in which case you could use this special to tank a death hit on stage 2, because the damage reduction will last for 2 turns, which will mean it will tank preemptive damage on stage 2. But it's very niche in my opinion. I don't think this unit will see play. This barrier reduction should also be at least 3 turns, because there's no other utility here besides reducing death hit damage. He's just not doing enough. He's interesting though, but yeah, I won't be using this character in PvE. He does have an interesting sailor ability. Setting bottom row to dex, he makes them matching as well, so you can get some matching orbs for stage 3 for instance, if the enemy doesn't change your slots, which is kind of cool I guess. And also if the enemy has a dex orb barrier. Now, what about his rumble abilities? This is where the unit gets spicy, man. So he is a defense style character with monstrous 286 defense stat, one of the highest we've seen in the entire game, and then also a 118 speed stat, which is horrendous. This is horrible. He will take forever to act. Remember, speed stat determines how fast the character acts and what their order is in the queue of attacking order, right? So 118, this unit will be at the back of the queue, which is concerning. However, he does have a 24 CT, which is quite low. Now, when you are talking about the new 12th anniversary Shanks, having this speed stat and 24 CT is not enough. He will still get killed before he attacks. However, he does have a counter to this in his rumble passive, which we will discuss in a moment. So first off, what is he resistant to? Special bind and action bind. That's awesome. And then he also will reduce damage taken from quick enemies by 30%. So I think that's a powerful resistance against 2 very common but annoying debuffs. He will also self-heal at level 2, so with his insane defense stats as well as the self-healing, Bartolomeo is going to be very hard for the enemy to kill without damage ignoring defense. So his rumble passive at level 5, he will buff Dex, Fighter and Straw Hat Pirates tag units. They have to have one of those attributes, not all of them. And he will give them HP up of level 6. That's a 1500 HP increase, which is quite substantial. He will also give them a defense up of level 6, which is a 150 defense increase. So with that, he's going to have a defense stat of about 436, which is unbelievable. Most characters nowadays only give about level 3 defense up just because of how broken it is. We do have a lot more units that do damage ignoring defense, but we also have a lot of units now that give the evasion to damage ignoring defense. So this is still really powerful. Defense up is never going to be bad. It's a massive damage reduction per level. And then also guard percent up of level 5. So when it comes to guard and blow away, I should be discussing or telling you guys how exactly it works. It's very confusing for newer players. So guard and blow away percent by default is 5% chance for every character. What it does, guard will reduce normal attack damage by 50% when it procs. Blow away will knock back enemies when procced. Don't get confused with PvE, because in PvE we also have blow away, but it's way different. Blow away in PvE is more akin to forced out in PvP. Blow away in PvP is just knockback. And this has its uses. It's definitely one of the more underused mechanics in Rumble. It definitely doesn't make as much of an impact as other types of buffs, but it definitely can make a difference, because when you are forming a Rumble team, you'd usually put the character that you want to tank your damage in the middle slot, because this places them in the frontmost position on the Rumble team. And if you look at basically any character in Treasure Cruise and you look at their target priority, it's always target closest enemies. So the character in the middle, the character that's in the front, always takes the most damage. And sometimes you don't want that to happen. You want to attack the enemy's vulnerable characters that they don't want you to attack. In this case, Blowaway is helpful for knocking back those characters, those tanky characters, and leaving your characters or the enemy's vulnerable units way more, taking way more damage, because they'll be in front because the tanky character was pushed to the back. And as you can look at every single character, everyone has target priority, closest enemies. So if you want a character to be targeted, Blowaway is a pretty good way to do this, by pushing back their tanky characters and making the vulnerable characters the focus of your normal attacks. It is quite a niche mechanic because it doesn't make as much of a difference, but it definitely can, based on what team you're running. Now, how does this tie into Bartolomeo's abilities? First off, he's giving these buffs a level 5 increase. What this does per level is give a 5% chance increase of this happening. So with level 5 guard percent up and blowaway percent up, it's a 25% increase. So both of these mechanics will now have a 30% chance of happening for all of your Dex, Fighter, and Stride Pyrotag units. So this is really nice, because Bartolomeo's next ability, when blowing away enemy. Now this is only himself. This is when Bartolomeo attacks and blows away the enemy. Gives quick and cerebral characters 30% CT delay. This is a direct counter to Shanks, who gives himself 30% CT when killing an enemy. So I mean, that ability is broken, man. Now, remember, we are dealing with a 30% chance of blowaway happening. Bartolomeo has a very low speed stat, so he's not attacking very often. So currently, it doesn't seem very reliable. A 30% chance when he acts and he's really acting, it doesn't seem very good. This won't activate very often. But if you bring other characters that increase blowaway chance, suddenly this becomes an almost guaranteed chance of delaying Shanks before he attacks with a massive 30%. And also Blackbeard Pirates, all these new characters that are quick, he also counts as them. And also other characters that are cerebral, like Nikabani, Kuma, I think Caesar as well, driven cerebral, yeah. So yeah, this is gonna be insane. And this can proc up to 3 times when Bartolomeo attacks. And also, if you have 4 more Stride Pyrotag units on the team, he gives himself speed up of level 6, which brings him to a more respectable 148 speed stat, which is more typical for most units, because speed up is 5 speed increase per level. So 6 times 5 equals 30. Plus the 118 is 148. Pretty nice. And then a self shield of level 5. You can't ignore this, man. Shield is definitely the most broken defensive effect in Treasure Cruise. Maybe not as much now because we have the damage reflection mechanic, which we will discuss how that works in depth in a moment. But still, it's a 2500 HP shield. And remember, I will discuss shields like in a dedicated video when going through Rumble basics, but it's essentially a defensive effect that can tank one massive hit no matter how much damage it does. For instance, Shanks, the 12th anniversary Shanks does a damage ignoring defense, which does, for instance, 10,000 damage to Bartolomeo. The shield is only 2500 HP, but the shield will always tank at least one massive hit before it goes away. So even though the shield is only 2500 HP, Shanks's damage will be completely absorbed into that shield. The shield will disappear after that. The second the shield reaches 0 HP, the damage the shield will go away, but it will tank that damage 100%. So shield level 5 to himself, the self-healing to himself, and the massive raw defense stat, Bartolomeo will not be dying, which is great news. It means that even if the battle goes sourly and the blowaway doesn't activate, he will still survive the damage ignoring defense that Shanks deals. So no matter what, Bartolomeo will activate his special because of how tanky he is, and he also has quite a low CT, as I said before. So overall, that is a really powerful passive. It's doing a lot. Massive tankiness increase through both HP up, defense up for the entire team. and reducing normal attack damage with guard percent up, also making himself an absolute tank and making up for his main vulnerability, which is his low speed stat. So I'm quite intrigued, but what about his Rumble special? So at level 10, he will target Dex type fighters and Destroy Pirates for speed up of level 5 for 20 seconds. So that's of course a 25 increase in speed, quite massive. And then also a blow away percent up of level 5 for another 20 seconds. So with both his passive and his special, blow away now has a 55% chance of happening, which is pretty damn good. If there are 4 or fewer strength type enemies, targets Dex types and Stroat, so no longer fighter allies for some reason, targets them for a damage reflex status to reduce damage by 50% and reflect 30% of the damage reduced onto the enemy. And this will be active for 20 seconds. So I will talk about this in depth after we finish reading the special here. If 4 or more Stroat Pirates on the team, targets fighter class and Stroat Pirate tag teammates for 100% chance to evade half stats. Not just half stats, any stat reducing effect. Defense down, speed down, HP down. This is broken, man. This is absolutely broken. I don't think this actually includes half stats. I think it just means the regular debuffs like defense down, speed down, HP down, etc. I'm not 100% sure on this, so if you are someone who knows, leave it down in the comments, let us know. But either way, this is broken. Like, this is insane. Now the issue here is that if you're running a team that's just Dex focused but doesn't have a lot of fighters, then they won't be getting this effect. But if you're running a team with mostly fighter focus, then they won't be getting the damage reflect. So your only way to get both of this is to run a fully Dex fighter team or run a team with a lot of Stroid Pirate tag units, because they get both of the buffs, right? But either way, this is insane, man, because wow, I mean, the damage reflect, we'll talk about this now. This is just a broken mechanic because, for one, it bypasses shield. It's essentially counter stance but on steroids. That's what I'll say. And I think to appreciate this new mechanic fully, we need to talk about counter stance first, because I mean, counter stance is a mechanic in Treasure Cruise that is largely underrated, I think, and for good reason. I mean, it's not that powerful. It's essentially when enemies hit a character with counter stance, it does damage back to the enemy based on the targeted unit's attack stats. So let's take 12th anniversary Luffy for example. When the enemy attacks Luffy, and this is only with normal attacks, counter stance, think normal attacks, it's only normal attacks, and when the enemy hits Luffy with a normal attack, he will take he will do 2.5 times his own attack, essentially reflected. Although it's not really reflected because it's only based on Luffy's attack stat, not based on how much damage is dealt to him. So it's just not very powerful, especially since it doesn't go through defense up. Like, it's not a very powerful mechanic. There's way too many moving parts. For one, the enemy has to hit you. Number 2, it has to be a normal attack. Number 3, it doesn't go through defense up. And number 4, it doesn't scale based on how much damage is dealt to Luffy. So it's not a very powerful mechanic, even when partnered with Provoke, which forces the enemy's normal attacks to hit this character specifically. Even then, it's not that crazy. Counter stance is just not very powerful in Treasure Cruise. Damage reflection is just the big buff version of that, because it works with specials. It goes through shield, and it scales based on how much damage the enemy is doing to you. So damage reflection, the game devs have actually given us very in-depth explanation here, so I appreciate that. It will mitigate a portion of the damage taken and deal part of the damage back to the attacker. So reflected damage cannot be blocked with a shield. Massive detail here. These characters that, like versus Zoro from Zoro versus Nustro, that apply a shield, it will go straight through that, man. Like, it's not gonna work. So off the bat, it's countering the strongest defensive effect in Treasure Cruise. That's insane. The damage mitigation and damage reflection will not apply to certain form of damage such as dot, counter stance damage, and reflected damage. So if you are running both a Bartolomeo on your team and you're also fighting a team with Bartolomeo, then if the enemy tries to reflect damage onto you, you can't reflect that damage back. So there's no such thing as Bartolomeo on Bartolomeo violence, right? And dot, I mean, dot is still such a broken mechanic. This would be insane if that affected dot, because remember, dot is a 5% of the enemy's maximum HP reduced whenever they attack per dot level. So if the enemy gives you a level 5 dot, you will lose 25% of your max HP whenever you perform a normal attack successfully. So if you could reflect that kind of damage, it would be unbelievably overpowered. This is reasonable, right? Counter stance, I mean, as I just explained, it's not that crazy, so that's not that big of a deal anyways. And then damage dealt through GP burst will be mitigated, so you will get a 50% damage reduction effect, but it won't be reflected. And then self-applied damage will not be mitigated or reflected. Now this is where it gets interesting. Self-applied damage will not be mitigated or reflected. Damage applied to an ally will be mitigated and reflected. So the reason this is interesting is because we do not have a single unit in Treasure Cruise, to my knowledge, that does damage to self in PvP or does damage to teammates in PvP. So when I make my character concept for Loki, this could be an effect that Loki has, self damage. You could have some, I mean, I'm not gonna spoil it because I have some very cool ideas for Loki's abilities as a concept, but Loki could have some very interesting effects. One of them could be self damage or doing damage to allies. It would kind of make sense because he kind of killed his dad, so it makes a bit of sense. And also he's kind of trained up for the first portion of Albath, which could also lead to him having action bind at the start of the battle when his rumble abilities come out. But yeah, as I said, I will talk about that in the concept video itself. But yeah, this is interesting because no one in the game currently does this, so definitely anticipate a character that will do self damage. It could be very interesting, but either way, it's very interesting that damage applied to ally is mitigated and reflected, but damage dealt to self is not. Very interesting detail there, because you could intentionally hurt your allies so that you can kill your enemies. It's a very weird concept, but I love the idea. It's interesting. And then the reflected damage will not be mitigated by special rules and resistances. So this is essentially confirmation that we will never get a character in Treasure Cruise that has a resistance to reflected damage. So we've seen characters like the new Emu and Shank, who now reduce certain types of damage. So Shanks reduces fixed damage by 70%, and then Emu's even more ridiculous, reducing percent damage and damage ignoring defense by 50%. But this is essentially confirmation that we will never get a resistance that reduces reflect damage, which is always nice to know. It means this mechanic is going to be a lot more robust. And then what else? Self-applied, yada yada. The reflected damage will not be mitigated, yeah, by special rules. So this is talking about the general rules from a Pirate Rumble season. You won't get this effect reduced from that, or buffed, it seems even. Characters that are KO'd will not take reflected damage. No shit. If the character, oh wait, no, that's actually, that's good information, man, because if you have Marcus, Mars, or Yamato acting as a suicide unit that dies in the first few moments, sometimes a special can activate before they die and use their on-death special, in which case this, yeah, it doesn't really matter, does it? Yeah, not really. I'm thinking of a very weird situation, and this might be relevant in some way to prevent Barto from wasting his damage reflection effect, but I'm not sure. If the character with damage reflection is KO'd with the damage, it will not reflect the damage. So this is a massive detail, because if any Shanks uses his damage ignoring defense special and kills your entire lineup, it will not reflect the damage back onto him. It's a massive issue. because in a lot of situations Shanks will indeed do that. His damage ignoring defense is broken. It will just kill your entire lineup, in which case the damage reflection won't do anything. So yeah, this is a massive issue with the damage reflection, but at the same time I think this is important to make it not so overpowered. Yeah, interesting detail there. And then the last applied damage reflection effect will overwrite any existing ones, so you can't stack this effect. Keep that in mind. So from what I'm reading there, damage reflection is going to be insane, man. And the fact that he has that as well as stat reduction evasion, he's increasing the blow away chance, so the chance of this massive CT reduction happening is so much higher. Yeah, I think Bart is going to be quite interesting. A very powerful character. He definitely could have an issue of once again Shanks just kills the entire lineup, or he could die before activating, but it's a very low chance of happening. Remember, he has that shield up of level 5, and that level 5 shield is massive enough to the point where the enemy's normal attacks will not dissipate the shield, so it's guaranteed that this will last until Shanks activates his special. And as I said, he does have a massive speed up buff from his passive and from his special, so I do think he won't have the massive issues with attacking in the queue, but he definitely will be one of the last units to activate on both the ally and enemy teams. Very interesting unit here. Damage reflection I think is going to be broken, but let me just take an example here to see how powerful this could be. 0.3 times Shanks's damage. Ooh, I'm not impressed. I'm really not impressed, because one detail that was not talked about in the notice, it doesn't state whether or not this damage will go through defense up. That is the key detail. And against Shanks, let's take this Shanks for example. No cotton candy, level 105, regular limit break, no limit break expansion. Oh wait, no, this one has limit break expansion as well. Okay. So limit break expansion, level 105, no cotton candy, has 2800 or 2659 attack stat. His damage ignoring defense is 2.2 times his attack, so that brings him up to 5849 damage. And with the 30% damage reflected from Bartolomeo, it's only 1754 damage. And remember, Shanks has an HP here of 7103, and that's without cotton candies even, and only level 105. So even if that went through defense, it's not that crazy. But we have to consider that is a very low attack boosting multiplier from the damage ignoring defense. If you look at spread damage, Bartolomeo would take 4x, but remember, he applies that damage reflection to everyone, not just himself. So essentially 20x, this could be much more powerful, even with the defense up blocking the damage. Now we're looking much better with 16,000 damage reflected if the spread damage hits everyone. Well, actually no, the spread damage will do 20x regardless, so that shield will always that damage reflection will always reflect the 16k back. So even if this does not go through defense, which it doesn't seem like it does, I mean, that's still powerful as hell, man. So overall, I think spread damage is going to be the best bet for using the damage reflection effect. Now, we don't know exactly with damage reflection, so when you take spread damage from the enemy, it's reduced for you because you have defense up. Does it take the damage that you take off the defense up and reflect it back at 30%? There's a lot of questions here based on, is it affected by your defense up, the enemy's defense up, and after all that, is it really going to be doing much damage at all? Especially, will it be enough to kill Shanks in one go after he does spread damage? It's a massive question, and it will definitely vary based on how invested your enemy Shanks is. But for now, all we can do is try and find good units to use this character with. We have very few units in the game that work with blow away, especially from modern day. The only other character that I could see somewhat helping here is the San Juan Wolf that is available also on the new banner. He doesn't synergize really well. He is a fighter powerhouse based unit, so there's some synergy here. My main issue is that one of the best effects that this San Juan Wolf provides is evasion to damage ignoring defense, but it's only applying to Blackbeard Pirate tag units. So the 12th Danny Luffy, the Bartolomeo, these characters will not get that effect. And also, he will only do more damage if you have a certain amount of Blackbeard Pirate tag units, and you already are struggling because you need those 4 Straw Pirate tag units to get Bartolomeo's effects. Regardless, I still think this character is worth running because he still is going to give massive HP up and defense up buff, as well as guard percent up. He's literally giving the exact same buffs that Bartolomeo does. Exact same levels, HP up a level 6, defense up a level 6, guard and blow away percent up of level 5. So just for that insane buff, I do think he's worth running, mainly because of his blow away percent up. So few characters in the game provide this in their passive as well as also in their special, because this guy will give you a total of level 10 blow away percent up, which is 50%. With him plus Bartolomeo, you can get up to a 100% blow away chance, which is unbelievable. 55% from Bartolomeo and then another 50% from San Juan. Now, most situations, you won't get the special from both San Juan and Bartolomeo to proc, so it'll be about for instance, 80%, because it's 55 plus 25. Yeah, 80% is still insane just from the passive of San Juan, the passive of Barto, and then also the special of Barto. So I still think he's going to be a great option for you to run. We have so few other characters that increase blow away chance, and he's still a fighter powerhouse. There's decent synergy there, so I still think he's worth running, even though he doesn't synergize perfectly right. So I think he's your best option if you want to make that blow away chance and resultantly the 30% delay from Barto much more reliable. And then of course 12th anniversary Luffy and Rumble Legend Ace. Let's talk about them. Now, when it comes to the Rumble Ace, I mean, he's going to synergize amazingly with the new Barto, as I will discuss in a moment. But when it comes to the Luffy, I mean, there's no real, like, insane synergy here. I mean, of course, they both Dex Fighter Powerhouse. They give each other all the buffs, right? Luffy is a Straw Pirate tag, so he's fulfilling Barto's requirements somewhat. But there's no like crazy synergy here. At least Luffy is giving a level 3 CT speed up buff for the entire team if you meet this requirement. So that reduces Barto's CT from like 24 seconds down to 22 seconds with essentially 10% reduction, right? And the special will once again give counter stance, as we explained earlier. Does damage ignoring defense to Shanks, gives you spread damage, and then also gives self paralysis. But when we talk about the Rumble Ace, it's extremely powerful synergy here, because this guy, unlike Barto himself, works with guard instead of blow away. And remember, Barto is giving level 5 guard up, which is 25% increase. We have Rumble Ace giving himself a 40% increase in guard. So it's essentially a default 70% chance of Rumble Ace guarding when using Bartolomeo, 5% base plus 40% from himself, and then another 25% from Bartolomeo, right? And then if you're running San Juan as well, that's essentially a guaranteed guarding chance, 95%. And when he guards, not only will he reduce damage taken from normal attacks, but he will reduce his own CT by 20%, which is a massive buff for this character. So if you have this Rumble Ace and the new 12th enemy Luffy, definitely consider going for this Barto. I mean, he is insane. We still need to navigate whether or not this reflection is that good, considering all the defense up, because as I said, the damage that the enemy does will be reduced by our own defense, and then the reflected damage will be reduced by the enemy's defense. So there's such massive reductions here happening that it's hard to gauge whether or not the damage reflection is that good. But I will test it out. I will do giveaway summons. Hopefully I get him maxed, and then we can test out Bartolomeo. I won't have the Rumble Ace though, which is a bit unfortunate, but Either way, we will be able to see whether or not this damage reflection is that good. But regardless, the synergy here is marvelous between these two characters. He gives speed up as well, which, as I said, Barto desperately needs. He also gives himself a level shield of level 8. So Barto and Ace give themselves massive shields, so they will survive through Shanks's damage ignoring defense. And remember, when you are using Shanks here, his Rumble special, it first is going to give the damage ignoring defense, then the spread damage. So the shield will completely tank the damage ignoring defense, preventing you from dying. And also, this is only targeting free spread enemies, so most of your characters will not be receiving this. The spread damage will be reflected amazingly, man. So yeah, I'm loving all the defense up, the HP up, the shields. I mean, these characters are going to be tanky. And remember, Barto himself has that insane raw defense that this trio of Rumble Ace, 12th Annie Luffy, and Bartolomeo is going to be unreal. Can't wait to test this out for myself. So that's going to be about it for my analysis. I do think the new damage reflection can have insane function, but we still need to see whether or not the defense up on both your own team and also the enemy's team will heavily nerf that damage. But the fact that it goes through shield is very interesting. The fact that it will reflect damage that you do to your own team is very interesting, because we don't have a unit that does that yet. So we definitely should be looking out for characters that do damage to allies to force the damage reflection onto the enemy. Could be insane, man. And PvE, as I said, he's quite niche. You'd usually use him on the earlier stages to get damage reduction and base attack boost, and damage reduction based attack boost for most of the quest. But even then, he won't last until the final stage in 5-stage content like PKA, only for stage 3 and 4. But he could make that damage reduction last for stage 5's preemptive, blocking some form of damage. But generally not really going to be used in PvE, and even harder to use in short form content like Treasure Map and Kizuna, which only has 3 stages. So yeah, PvP amazing, PvE not so much. I will discuss the Sugo Fist in depth, all the characters, as I said, when the Sugo Fist comes out, and whether or not you should be pulling, how many multis should you do if you want maximum value, and all that lovely stuff. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Make sure to like, subscribe for more Rumble analysis and unit legend analysis in the future. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace, and I'm out.